At Christmas brunch, I knocked on the door with my kids, one in a sparkly red dress, the other gripping a crumpled card that said "Merry Christmas, Auntie." My sister peeked through the frosted window, her face half shadowed by the gold garland hanging above it. Then she opened the door just an inch. The cold hit my face harder than her words. "Today's not a good day for your kind of energy," she said. Her voice was syrup-sweet, but her eyes were knives. I stood there blinking. "Excuse me?" She looked past me like I was blocking her view of something better. "We're trying to keep things positive. You always bring drama." My daughter whispered, "Dad?" I looked down at them. Their cheeks red from the cold, holding out handmade gifts. My son shuffled closer to me. He didn't understand. Neither did I. I just smiled. Tight. Controlled. "Let's go get pancakes," I said. I turned without another word, my boots crunching against the driveway. I didn't flinch when she closed the door behind me. I didn't look back when the wreath fell off the nail and hit the ground. 10 minutes later, as we sat in a nearly empty diner, coloring paper placemats and sipping hot cocoa, my phone rang. It was my brother, yelling. "What the hell did you do? Why did you cancel her lease?" My name is Marcus Hayes. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Because I didn't cancel her lease. At least not that day. Have you ever been treated like a stray dog by the same people you once fed? I hadn't touched that lease in over a year. But guess what? It was in my name. My money. My apartment. Her life, all built on my silence. And I was done being quiet. So I leaned back, stared at my kids, and finally said it out loud. She brought this on herself. Somewhere, I heard the sound of a fuse hissing toward detonation. I just didn't know yet how big the explosion would be. "Marcus, fix this, now," my brother barked into the phone. I didn't flinch. Just stirred my coffee slowly, watching the swirl of cream fold into darkness. "She told me to leave," I said. "So I did." She didn't mean it like that. She meant it exactly like that. My kids were giggling now, drawing snowmen and candy canes with crayons the waitress had brought. They didn't know the war that had just started. Or maybe, finally ended. See, 3 years ago when my sister begged me for help moving out of her toxic relationship, I moved mountains. I paid her first and last month's rent, furnished the place, and signed the lease under my name. She had bad credit. I didn't. She called me her hero back then. But slowly she stopped calling me anything. Except when she needed something. You ever notice how some people only see you when you're useful? She never paid rent. Not once. She always had an excuse, a flat tire, a job loss, a sick dog, a new investment. And I let it slide. Every time. Because she was my sister. Because our mom always said, family looks after family. Funny how family forgets that when it's your turn to fall. So when I walked away from her door that morning, I didn't just take my kids. I took my power back. I called the landlord. Told them to terminate the lease, effective immediately. She had 60 days notice on file. She just never bothered to read the paperwork. I watched my daughter smear syrup all over her plate, laughing. My son looked up at me and asked, "Are we still going to open presents with Auntie?" I smiled gently. "No, buddy. Not this year." That night I got a string of texts from her. "You're kicking me out. You ruined Christmas for everyone. You monster." I didn't reply. She could weaponize tears, guilt, even the entire family, but she couldn't touch my peace. Then came the voicemail from our mother, bitter and low. "I don't know what's gotten into you, Marcus. She said you embarrassed her in front of everyone. Maybe it's time you grow up and stop acting like a victim." That was rich. They never saw me as a victim when I was paying their bills. They just saw a bank in a man's skin. So I did what banks do when there's no return. I closed the account. And the overdraft fees? They were just getting started. The call came the next morning. Group FaceTime, my mother, my brother, and my sister, all crammed into one screen like they were holding court. My sister's eyes were puffy. She sniffled dramatically, a tissue clutched in one hand. "Marcus, how could you?" My mother leaned in. "You humiliated your sister. On Christmas. What kind of man does that?" I stared at the screen for a second, then flipped the camera so they could see my living room. Boxes stacked against the wall, my 2 kids sitting quietly watching cartoons, the only family I owed anything to. I flipped it back. "You mean after she told me I wasn't welcome? After she shut the door in my kids' faces?" "She didn't mean it like that," my brother muttered. "She meant it exactly like that," I snapped. "And you all let it happen." My mother narrowed her eyes. "She's going through a hard time." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "A hard time funded by my paycheck. I covered her rent, her car payments, even her damn spa days. And the moment I needed a little warmth, she turned me into a virus. Don't be dramatic, my brother said. I'm being accurate. Then my sister broke. You don't know what it's like. I've been trying to hold everything together and you just abandoned me. What am I supposed to do now? I looked her dead in the eye. Stand on your own. For once. There was a long silence. No one moved. Then my mother said, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't have relied on you so much. But that's what family does. We pick each other up. No, I said quietly. I picked everyone up. For years. And no one ever checked if I was standing or bleeding. My sister's voice cracked. So you're just going to watch me get evicted? I tilted my head. You watched me walk away with my kids and didn't say a word. We're even. I hung up. I sat there afterward, phone buzzing with guilt bombs, but I didn't read them. I just sat in the quiet. Because for the first time in a decade, I wasn't the backup plan. I was the storm they forgot I could become. And Christmas? Christmas was no longer about giving. It was about cutting off the thieves dressed as family. A week passed. 7 days of silence. No texts, no calls. Just passive-aggressive posts on my sister's social media about betrayal and fake relatives. The comments were full of sympathy. Stay strong, queen. You deserve better. Family can be so toxic. She played the victim like it was a piano. And the internet? The perfect audience. Meanwhile, I kept receipts, bank transfers, lease agreements, screenshots. I wasn't planning a war. But if they wanted one, I'd bring airstrikes. Then I got an email from the landlord. Subject: unauthorized pets, damages, final inspection report. Attached were photos, a wrecked apartment, dog scratches on the floor, wine stains on the carpet, broken cabinet doors, thousands in damages, all under my name. She didn't just freeload, she trashed the place. And suddenly I saw it all clearly. This wasn't just neglect. It was entitlement. She believed she could destroy anything because I would clean it up. So I drove to the property. She wasn't there. But her things were: designer shoes in the hall, makeup strewn across the bathroom, fake motivational quotes taped to the fridge. Be the energy you want to attract. I laughed out loud. I opened a drawer and found bills she never paid, letters she never opened. One was a job offer. 6 months old. Declined. She didn't want stability. She wanted sponsorship. And I had been her corporate sponsor with no benefits. As I walked out, a neighbor waved. She's lucky to have a brother like you, he said. I smiled. She was. That night, I boxed up her things and paid a moving company to drop them at our parents' house. I attached a note. She needed a support system. I'm not it anymore. Good luck. An hour later, my mother called, furious. Are you trying to ruin her life? I spoke slowly. Come. No. I'm letting her live the one she built. She doesn't deserve this. She didn't deserve the lease either. But she got that, didn't she? Click. Silence again. But this time it didn't ache. It felt clean. Like the first breath after a storm. Because there's a difference between being needed and being used. And I was done being her crutch. From now on, she'd walk on her own. Or fall with no one left to catch her. They didn't come to New Year's. Not my mother. Not my brother. Not even a text from my sister. It was just me, my kids, 2 party hats, and a little confetti that stuck to our socks all week. And honestly, it was peaceful. No eggshells. No fake smiles. No pretending I didn't feel invisible in rooms full of people who shared my DNA. But the silence didn't last. The next morning, a letter came from a collections agency. Total owed for apartment damages: $6,742.56. And guess whose name was on the contract? Mine. I stared at the number, then called my sister. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "You trashed the place. You pay for it." No reply. A minute later, I checked her Instagram story. She was at a spa. Face covered in a gold mask, glass of champagne in hand. Healing my soul in 2024, woman getting massage sparkles. I almost threw my phone. Then I got the real blow, a call from my company's HR department. Marcus, we've received a complaint. Apparently, your sister tagged our firm in a post about toxic masculinity and financial abuse. She mentioned your full name. I couldn't breathe. Wait, what? She's implying you cut her off as punishment. We just need your side, but... I didn't let him finish. I opened my laptop, logged into the shared Dropbox I'd created years ago, the one where I kept every receipt, every Venmo payment, every signed lease document. I uploaded them all. labeled the folder. Proof I was her lifeline. And I sent a link to HR. With one line. Just in case you want to know the full story. They called back the next day. Apologized. Case closed. But I wasn't done. Because that's the thing about blood. People think it gives them rights. Control. But blood isn't a receipt. It doesn't prove loyalty. It just proves origin. And origin doesn't mean ownership. I posted my own story. Not a call-out. Not revenge. Just a thread. When someone you love weaponizes your kindness, it changes you. I used to think silence was strength. But now I know. Silence is permission. It went viral. People reached out. Strangers said they felt seen. And for the first time I felt heard. Meanwhile, my sister? She went quiet. She didn't expect me to speak up. She only ever knew the version of me who paid the bills and swallowed the pain. She was about to meet someone new. A week later my phone buzzed. Not a call. Not a message. A tag. Someone had reposted my thread to a major platform. The silent brother who finally snapped. Thousands of comments. Shares. Support from people who had carried their families like coffins. And then, screenshots started surfacing. Not mine. Hers. Old tweets. Instagram posts. Bragging about not paying rent. About finessing her way through life. About suckers who think being kind means being weak. They weren't even private. She never thought anyone would look too closely. Then came the podcast. This is what emotional manipulation looks like. Let's talk about financial abuse, but the other way around. And just like that, her echo chamber collapsed. She called me that night. The voice was small. Fragile. The version of her I hadn't heard since she was 17 and scared. Marcus, you didn't have to go public. I didn't reply. She sniffled. People are threatening me. That's not on me, I said. You built the stage. I just turned on the lights. A long pause. Do you hate me? I didn't answer that either. Not because I didn't know, but because hate would require energy. And I'd already given her enough of mine. Instead I said, you wanted to be famous. Now they know your name. Please, she whispered. Can we fix this? That word. We. I said it slowly, there is no we. Click. The next day my mother showed up at my door. No call. No warning. I opened it, stared at her standing there in her church coat, disappointment folded into the lines on her face. I didn't raise you to be cruel, she said. I let her inside. My kids were in the other room playing. She glanced at them but didn't speak to them. Her eyes were all on me. She's your sister. She's your daughter, I said back. Where were you when she was bleeding me dry? She needed help. And so did I. My voice cracked, not from anger. From memory. I was drowning in bills. My wife left. I was raising 2 kids alone. And I still paid her rent while you looked the other way. Her face shifted. Something softened. I didn't know, she whispered. No, I said. You didn't ask. She nodded slowly. Then reached out to touch my shoulder. I let her. But I didn't hug her back. She left 10 minutes later, quieter than she arrived. And for the first time in years I felt taller. Because sometimes closure doesn't come with forgiveness. Sometimes it comes when you stop begging people to see you, and start showing them what you look like when you finally do. Mid-January. Cold enough that breath turned visible, like the past trying to haunt you one last time. I was sitting in my car outside the apartment building I used to pay for, the one my sister had called hers. The notice on the door was loud in its silence. Final eviction, lock change scheduled today. I didn't come to gloat. I came for closure. She had ignored every notice. Every call from the property manager. Every attempt to settle the damages. Her pride was louder than her logic. She thought she could spin her way out again. But reality doesn't read your tweets. As I watched the locksmith drill into the door, she pulled up in a rideshare. Hair messy. Hoodie over pajama pants. And no audience to perform for. She saw me. Froze. I stepped out of the car. What are you doing here? She asked, arms folded like armor. Making sure you don't lie your way out of this one. I didn't ask you to be here. You didn't ask me to be anywhere. You expected me to. The locksmith stepped aside. The door swung open. Her world boxed and stacked in chaos. Makeup scattered. Framed quotes cracked on the floor. One still hanging crooked on the wall. Gratitude turns what we have into enough. I couldn't help but laugh. You really lived in 2 different realities, I said. She didn't respond. Just stared at the mess like if she looked long enough, it might arrange itself. Where are you going to stay? I asked. She hesitated. I, I don't know. Mom's probably, I said. Though I'm sure she'll make you feel like a burden in under a week. Why do you hate me? She asked softly. I don't, I said, voice flat. I hate the version of me I became to keep loving you. Tears welled in her eyes. But they weren't for me. They were for the fall. The crash after a long free ride. Can I, at least get help with a truck? She asked. No, I said. But I did leave something for you. She blinked. I reached into my coat, pulled out a small envelope and handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside was a check. $1. She looked up, confused. That's how much respect I got in return for everything I gave, I said. So that's all that's left. I turned and walked away. Behind me the door closed with a final click. The lock changed. And just like that the chapter did too. It's been 6 months. The silence is different now, not heavy or bitter. Just honest. My phone doesn't ring at all hours. My bank account doesn't bleed from invisible hands. I wake up knowing that every dollar I earn belongs to the people who matter. Me and my kids. Last week my daughter asked me, "Are we still mad at Auntie?" I smiled. No, sweetie. We're just done. Because that's the thing no one tells you. Revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's absence. Sometimes it's walking away with your peace intact while they try to weaponize the hole you left. My sister did move in with our mom. But that didn't last long. Apparently, enabling is easier from a distance. Now she lives with a friend, still making vague posts about family betrayal and how strong women rise from the ashes. I don't correct her. I don't chase the truth anymore. Because people who need to lie to keep their world spinning aren't worth pulling into yours. My brother eventually apologized. Quietly. Said he didn't realize how deep it went. That he thought I was just being dramatic. I was drowning, I told him. And y'all were arguing about whether I was making waves. He nodded. We're rebuilding. Slowly. On truth, not guilt. My mom? Still hasn't fully come around. But she stopped defending her. Maybe that's her way of saying sorry by saying nothing at all. And me? I started a new job. Better hours. More time with my kids. I take them to brunch every Sunday now. Pancakes. Extra syrup. No doorbells. No rejections. Just us. Last Sunday my son handed me a crayon drawing. It was our house. A tiny stick figure, me in the middle holding 2 smaller hands. Above it, in his shaky handwriting, "We are safe here." I stared at it for a long time. Safe. That's the word I never knew I needed. Not loved. Not appreciated. Just safe. If you're watching this and you've ever felt like your loyalty was a leash, like your kindness was a weakness they kept pulling, let this be your permission slip. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose peace even if it leaves them confused. Because family isn't who you're born with. It's who doesn't flinch when you fall. Who doesn't disappear when you say no. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let the door close.